We're back. Are we back? We're back. Hello. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to the first episode. Thank you to everyone who's tuning into this episode. I've never done anything like this prior to the first episode, and I appreciate everyone that's reached out and said good job or nice to see you talk about something you care about, or any of those things. Constructive criticism, tips and tricks on how to make things a little better, how to stop getting myself to stop saying a lot. It's tricky. I'm going to try to do my best. Um, there it is. First thing we're going to get to in this one, of course, is the first match of night 2 of the New Japan Cup. Not going to get into any of the multi-mans, of course, because that's not what we're doing here. I'm sure they were fine. The first match we get is, of course, one half of the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. Yes, of course, we all know him. Chase Owens, the self proclaimed crown jewel of Bullet Club. Quite a jewel. Quite a jewel he is. This one, he's taking on Tomohiro Ishii, member of Chaos. He's the Stone Pitbull. We do love him, and he rocks. This match, a lot better than I thought it was going to be. On paper, this whole night didn't look great. Um, and I do think that it was a little bit better than it looked for sure. Certainly, I know with the Finley match and this match as well, which let's get into it. Match opens with Ishii coming to the ring first, Chase Owens second. As soon as Chase Owens gets into the ring, Ishii attacks him. They go outside of the ring. Kind of a typical New Japan thing where they mess around for a bit. There's a bump into the ring barrier. A young lion is unfortunately involved, of course, and there's a 19 count before Ishii can get back into the ring. Um, this one was a good match. There was a lot of throws, a lot of stiff strikes, but I just can't wrap my head around this Chase Owens. And by this Chase Owens, I mean the Chase Owens that has always been Chase Owens, which is like a 2014 Bullet Club shtick guy. That is like such a bygone era. And even the guys that do still do it a little bit, the Young Bucks specifically, they're just so good that, and they're usually like worms that it kind of adds to their act. That Chase Owens for me is like, you can't do something called a C trigger and be like, oh, it's C for Chase, C trigger, cool, that's my move now. He does 4 of them in this match, to which they have some effect to our beloved Ishii. Um, they go back and forth in this, lots of throws, some stiff strikes. I think I mentioned that already. It ends with Chase Owens ultimately getting the victory here. He does a really bad looking package pile driver and picks up the 1, 2, 3. I know that I'm dumping on this match, but it was quite good. Up until this point in the tournament, it was the best of the tournament. And I think that I don't think the Ishii is ever going to win one of these. There's other competitors from Chaos that have won it, and unfortunately, I don't think that Ishii is going to be one of those guys that gets to do it. I'd love him to be able to get far into one of these, but at this point in his career, it doesn't seem like New Japan is necessarily pining for that as much as I may be. Would love to see Ishii maybe go somewhere else. I know that a lot of these New Japan contracts are year to year, and he's been there for so long, but I wouldn't mind seeing him maybe go over to Big Japan for a while and dip his toe in some serious some serious bashing of large men, himself included. Obviously, there's a lot of meat over there, and a lot of guys who want to no sell and hit each other really hard. So that'd be cool for Big Tom to do. Um, just a treat to see him every time. Some great no sells, the best superplex in the business. I love how he has the guy usually just with one foot on the rope at the top, and they slowly go up, and just that was a good spot. Like I said, Chase Owens wins, moves on. Moving on to the second match, we got Tonga Loa versus Great O'Khan. Um, not much to be said about this one. It was plodding. Uh, it spent a lot of the time on the mat doing some not so great grappling. Neither guy really is much of a guy. I know there were pretty big hopes on O'Khan, and people do like him, I think, in large part because of his great entrance, which I mentioned last week. But there's just not a lot there to him, I don't think. At one point, he gets Tongaloa into the corner and he sits on him like this. He sits on his head and he stretches his arms and he jumps off. Not for me. Tongaloa ultimately wins this one with what appears to be a Kamagoye, the old Kota Ibushi finisher where both wrists are grabbed and there's a nice knee to the face. Sorry about that. So that takes out Tongaloa. Sorry, that takes out. Boy, I bumped the desk. I bumped the desk and it made me lose my place, and I forgot who he was wrestling. Of course, it was the Great O'Khan, who goes down in defeat to Tongaloa thanks to the Kamagoye. In doing the Kamagoye, that's why I bumped the desk. I'm not going to try to recreate any more strikes for as long as I can. It's pretty tempting, though. Next match, main event of night 2. TJP of the United Empire versus the leader of Bullet Club. Maybe just War Dogs. Maybe Bullet Club in general. I don't know. Bullet Club is fine, but I don't know who the leader is. This match, pretty hot. Main event, crowd was super into it. I think this is at Korakuen. Always great vibes there. These guys put on quite a good show. Lots of baby face. I mean, it just was a really simple baby face versus heel dynamic, and both competitors played it up really well. I don't like seeing David Finlay wrestle. It still doesn't seem like he has his own style to the way he wrestles. It all just seems like a bunch of moves that a guy does, but he doesn't really have like a character. He has a character, but it doesn't seem like a fleshed out, like, the way he doesn't seem in the ring like he is outside of the ring. And I think that's a big hiccup with me, especially for someone who is supposed to be like this really nasty guy. A lot of times you see these guys and you hate them because of how nasty and bad they are and how they must be such bad guys outside of the ring. But I can't really buy it with David Finlay. But he does pick up the win. Of course, we all knew that was going to happen. Hits him with some sort of backbreakery. Oh no, it's like a over the shoulder kind of go to sleep kind of thing, but out of a suplex position maybe. Anyways, kind of a cool finisher. But again, it doesn't feel like a finisher that's his. Nothing really feels like it's his. Not even the shillelagh is his. You know what I mean? It's his father's. All right, let's move on. Night 2 was a lot better than it looked on paper. Night 3 looked good on paper. Could it deliver in practice? I thought it did. Again, not talking about the openers. First cut match of this one is Bolton Oleg versus Hikuleo. Bolton Oleg, for those who aren't totally familiar with him, he's a young lion. He's European. He's humongous. And he moves really well in the ring. And I'm looking forward to seeing his progression up through the ranks. Looking forward to seeing where he goes to Excursion. I would kind of think that he ends up in England, but you never know. He could end up in Mexico, which could be very funny. And ultimately, what changes his career? It happens to a lot of guys. They get somewhere that they don't necessarily fit. They need to find themselves. They need to find something within themselves to kind of elevate them and distinguish themselves within that sphere. And sometimes what they come back with is a much more polished product. Quite a bit unlike David Finlay in TNA, if you even want to call it an Excursion, and then coming back to Japan as this big bad leader who is ultimately quite pathetic, and I would like to see him usurped as the leader of War Dogs. We're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about Bolton Oleg versus Hikuleo. Some big throws in this. Bull no leg, bit of a showcase match for him, in my opinion. Um, Great look. Obviously, he's smaller than Hikuleu, as Hikuleu is like 7 feet tall. Something you can't teach. You just grow that big. But he chucks him around a little bit. Ultimately, it does end with Hikuleu choke slam 1, 2, 3. That's it. That's the opening match there. It's pretty good. I liked it. I like Bull No Leg. I'm not a big Hikuleu guy, but I think working with El Phantasmo as much as he has, LP's such a pro, and he's brought Hikuleu along, even just as a guy that the crowd doesn't dislike anymore. That's a huge step for him. um, Hikuleu is not a good, not a great guy at playing up the crowd or doing anything overly dastardly or rude. Depending on what the dynamic is within the match, if Hippie babyface is not. This didn't really have a dynamic. It was young lion versus a more veteran guy, and that was kind of it. Hikuleu wins chokeslam 1, 2, 3. Next up, we have relatively new United Empire member Callum Newman, who I believe is a British kid. It's pretty clear to see why Will Ospreay is high on this guy. He's big, looks pretty strong. He's acrobatic. He's bigger than Will was at, I think, the same point in their careers, and does a little bit more of what Will did when he was at that stage. It's not quite as flashy, as Newman is a bit of a bigger body and not quite as gymnastic, but he still does a lot of high flying stuff. This match was pretty good. He holds his own at the start. It goes to the outside. He's wrestling Gabe Kidd, who I think should be the leader of War Dogs after usurping the aforementioned David Finlay. Um, Gabe Kidd, a guy who I'm a big fan of, much like who we'll talk about later on with Yuya Uemura. Watched them both as guys as young lions. Gabe Kidd eventually went to the States to train under Shibata in the LA dojo. He's come such a he's come such a long way, and he's really just a real mean, rude ass kicker now. And once this match gets to the outside, he leans into that. Obviously, there's some spots with the guardrails. They go into the crowd. Chairs are overturned. It's pretty good. They get back in finally. There's a couple babyface fire ups, a couple heel kind of defenses of those fire ups. Um, Ultimately, Gabe Kidd gets the win with what appears to be kind of like a Gotch style pile driver, but he has the leg, one of the legs hooked, drops him on his head. 1, 2, 3. He moves on, which I was hoping he would, because there's possibilities to set up a pretty good match in the second round with that Gabe Kidd win. There's a really cool spot in this where once it does first go to the outside, Callum Newman's still got some heat, and he does a moonsault off of the second turnbuckle on the outside. And during this moonsault, Gabe Kidd hits him with a nice uppercut. That's kind of where the tides start to change from that initial flurry by Callum Newman. But yeah, like I said, Gabe Kidd wins, moves on, main event time. We love it. We got Yuya Uemura, who's looking for a strong match, with debuting to many with a new look after he lost his hair versus hair match to Yota Tsuji in what, to me, as I mentioned in the first episode, was an underwhelming match. This was a great rehab of Yuya. As I was mentioning earlier about Gabe Kidd, fan of his since he was a young lion. I saw him live while he was in Excursion. I went to a taping of some wrestling show in Burbank at a TV studio, and he wrestled Kid Bandit. It ultimately ended up being like a 20-minute draw or something like that. But Yuya just by far and away the best wrestler that was in the house that night. So technically gifted. He's so fast. He's like sneaky in all those ways too. You see his body and he looks great. He's got a good look. Hair now, his hair is red now since it's cut short after having to shave it in that Apuestas. But sneaky good at everything, and I think that's gonna just become more and more polished as he develops as a character. We'll see what happens. This match was against Shingo Takagi, who big favorite of ours in this sphere. Ours, I say, my friends and I. Um, he's just got such a great look. The dragon mask that he comes out in, he's got a cloak on. He's got this big, strong, old timey strong man look to him. And it's just great. Yuya started this match. Yuya's technical prowess and speed takes over for a while. Probably the first 5 minutes or so is all Yuya, just kind of grounding Shingo and flexing on him a little bit, being like, I'm the more technical guy here. You may be stronger, but the way I can manipulate you, I'm going to use it to my benefit. And he does for the quite an opening stretch here. Shingo takes over with some outside of the ring stuff, some fence work, of course. 10 minutes into the match, each guy is controlled about 5 minutes or so. Once they get back in, they kind of get back to what they're both good at, which is, again, technical skill, speed, strength, and in Shingo's case, just some big bombs and throws, which we all love to see, especially in a main event. I didn't mention it yet, but this night 3 was in a gymnasium, one of those really, really well lit, spacious, massive gymnasiums with only what appears to be floor seating. So there's just so much space. It's really tricky to fill that space, I think, as a performer, especially. These guys brought all the attention from to themselves. You weren't looking around at any point in the corners of the stadium, this big empty space, looking for just like, oh, this place is huge and empty. This looks like shit. That wasn't the case. These guys brought it. Eyes were on them the whole time. Um, my favorite match of the tournament so far. Ultimately, Shingo does win after some really great control. There's a lot of back and forth, but there's also some control sessions within the middle of the match. Pretty 50-50 match. It was a great rehab for Yuya. He brought it. I feel like he wasn't reborn. Obviously, he has already been reborn as this guy of just 5 guys, who I believe is referred to as Heat Wave. That might not be right, but I think that's pretty close. Heat Storm. That's what it is. Heat Storm Yuya Uemura looked good. Red hair, beautiful boy, nice moves, strong, technical prowess. I love technical stuff. Zack Sabre Jr. is maybe my favorite wrestler in the world right now. Brian Danielson's up there too. Just technical ability, strength, and overall look. We talked earlier about David Finlay not having a feeling of being a complete character, and I think Yuya is really getting there. He's made tremendous strides. He did while he was on what's it? On excursion in the States. He made a lot of strides, kind of coming into his own, but didn't really have a character fleshed out. And I think he's done a great job since getting back to New Japan, being a member of Just 5 Guys, of developing more of a character. I think with the hair loss, that is almost like a little mini reset, because when he did come back from excursion, he had lots of hair in excursion. He comes back with the hair, ultimately loses it. So this is a bit of a soft relaunch, I think, for him, and it really paid off. Shingo, of course, phenomenal throughout. Sliding lariats, pumping bomber, made in Japan, and ultimately finishes with a last of the dragon for 1, 2, 3. Night 3, the best for me so far. I was really looking forward to this one because it does set up some really nice matches on the right side of the bracket, which we'll get into probably tomorrow. I think I might do a review show tomorrow of tonight's card, which is the last. It's show 4, which is the last matches of this right side of the bracket. So we'll maybe recap that and then chat about what the right side has set up for round 2, which we'll do about the left side in round 2 right now. We got Sonata versus Yoshihashi. Don't have a ton of time for that one. I think Sonata probably gets the win after his loss of his championship. They still want to make him look strong as the head of Just 5 Guys. There's no real need for Yoshihashi to win. Always a great baby face, but just it's Yoshihashi, We have Jack Perry versus Toriano, which I'm really looking forward to. Toru Yano, just a man who likes to torture wrestlers, and not in the typical way that a wrestler will, in the sense of Minoru Suzuki or anyone doing joint manipulations, such as Zack Sabre Jr., anyone from El Desperado, those types of guys. He likes to torture people by getting under their skin and using multiple rolls of tape to try and get countouts, or putting them in an elevator and getting countouts. And this is why Toru Yano is such a powerful and daunting figure in these tournaments. You look at the G1 wins he's had over the past forever. Going back to Kenny Omega, he was the first person Mox lost to in New Japan. Mox still doesn't have his win back on him. So that'll be interesting. See how Jack Perry deals with that. Not a big Jack Perry guy right here, but he's a guy who might be able to excel in this match. Just being a pissed off little worm that can't deal with Yano. I do expect Jack Perry to win, which would set up Sonata and Jack Perry, which we got at Forbidden Door 2, which I was there. It wasn't great. We'll see if this one's any better. That also leaves us with David Finlay and Tongaloa. I imagine David Finlay wins that one, advancing on to face the winner of Goto and Chase Owens. Hope it's Goto, might be Owens, and then it'll be a David Finlay, Chase Owens thing, which I don't have a lot of appetite for, but they might be able to do something with some sort of Bullet Club hierarchy and whether or not some guy will lay down. You see this a bunch during G1. They kind of tease the lay down. They tease it not working, and sometimes it ends up being a pretty good match after that, with neither guy wanting, or the lower card guy not wanting to give in to his boss of sorts. So we'll see how that goes. Like I mentioned, thanks to everyone that tuned in. Last one, this one, night 4 we're going to do pretty soon, and then we'll do the review of the right side of the bracket moving forward. Really appreciate everyone. Thank you for joining me. We'll tap back in soon. Oh, I want to give a shout out to Cobra Club, Cobra Goods. We got Big Van Vader. We got Bam Bam Bigelow. New Japan. Just terrors, these guys. On the side of this shirt, we got them cheersing a beer in the back. It's a pretty iconic photo, I think. Familiar with that. And of course, bats. There's bats on the sleeves. Join me next time. Bat free edition. We'll see you soon. I love you. Peace.